Thanks for listening to my podcast. In this McKay interview, I talked to Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union, the ITU, in Geneva. We discuss a wide range of relevant topics, from global connectivity and the work being done on behalf of the estimated 2.6 billion people, that's 32% of the world's population, who are still offline, to bridging the digital divide in the age of artificial intelligence, to governance of the radio frequency spectrum and satellite orbits, and a whole lot more. I hope you enjoy the show.
ITU enables what we're doing today to happen. It enables us to connect the world. When we think about global positioning, satellite service, GPS, if we think about video conferencing or calling your family, if we think about buying something online, that is thanks to the work of the ITU.
Hello everyone. I hope you had a great summer wherever you went, and some of you might still be on the beach or by the swimming pool or up in the mountains. But if you are listening in Francophonie, or at least the Suisse romande, you will know that it's la rentrée. In English, that's back to school, or if you're listening in the German-speaking part of Switzerland, that's Schulanfang. Yeah, that's what they call it down there. And it's a busy time for all, at least if you have kids in school. And I'm in Geneva today, in the heart of United Nations country, in one of the most significant and oldest, if not the oldest, international organization of all, dating right back to 1865. With its beginnings, if I'm correct, actually here in Switzerland, though my guest will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm delighted to be sitting in the office of Doreen Bogdan-Martin. She's the Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union, the ITU. And we're going to be talking about what she does and the range of invaluable and complex services that the ITU performs. She's a seasoned professional in her field with a CV too long to run through here today. And as you'll hear as our conversation develops, certainly knows her way around the world and her area of expertise. Listeners, we couldn't wish to have a more knowledgeable and agreeable conversation partner. Secretary General Bogdan-Martin, welcome to the McKay interview. Thank you for inviting me and our listeners to your office. It's very, very good to see you again.
Thank you so much, Michael, and it's great to be here.
Great to see you. Listen, I'm an old school type, Secretary General. May I call you Doreen?
Of course.
Thank you very much. Look, it's the ITU's 160th anniversary this year, and I have the audacity to only give you about 30 to 35 minutes to talk about this important organization. So please don't show me the door. I hope my numerous questions are up to the task. But my first question is a fairly obvious one. Many tuning in today might have heard vaguely the abbreviation ITU, but will not be sure what it stands for and why ITU exists and what material difference the ITU makes to the lives of ordinary people, whether in Geneva, Johannesburg, Guangzhou. What would you say to them?
I would say ITU enables what we're doing today to happen. It enables us to connect the world. When we think about global positioning, satellite service, GPS, if we think about video conferencing or calling your family, if we think about buying something online, that is thanks to the work of the ITU. We are the oldest. We actually, as you said, date back to 1865. So we predate our friends from UPU. We were created in Paris.
So not in Switzerland?
So we started in Paris.
In Paris,
yeah.
I see. Okay.
1865, the International Telegraph Convention signing with
That's
20.
what it was called.
Yeah, we were the International Telegraph Union, and then became the International Telecommunications Union.
I see. So how did it end up here?
So it was kind of a long process, but we started, as I said, with the telegraph. 20 European countries came together. And they came together because the telegraph was the thing. Yeah. We needed to make sure that the telegraph could actually pass seamlessly from one country to another, therefore necessitating an international framework, a regulatory framework, which became the International Telegraph Convention. We then moved to Bern afterwards, and then ultimately came to Geneva.
I see.
So Switzerland has been our home for a long, long time. And of course, our history started with the telegraph, but moved on to radio, to television, to telephone, to mobile phones, to the internet, to satellites. And now, of course, it's everything AI, quantum, and more.
Exactly. So let's go back a little bit anyway. I read somewhere that about 90%, perhaps even more, of the world's population have access to electricity. So that's 10% that don't. But that must affect access to basic services of life, of living. But what about internet connectivity? How many of the world's population are still offline, and what is the ITU doing about it?
That comes to the core and the crux of our mission. So it's all about connectivity and connecting the unconnected. And we've made tremendous progress, but today we still have 2.6 billion people that have never, ever connected to the internet.
That's
so that's a third of humanity.
Yeah.
Connectivity challenges are biggest in developing countries. In Africa, where 62% of the population is not connected.
Is that what the percentage is, 62%?
Yeah, that's linked back to your point about access to electricity, because you still have, I think it's some 600 million that don't have access to electricity. So they do go hand in hand. And when I come to your point about what's the ITU doing about it, we're trying to advance the right policy and regulatory frameworks to attract the needed investment. We're trying to support countries in building out the infrastructure. The infrastructure is a critical piece. I think the other key piece is the device. So if you get the connectivity there, you need to make sure that people can actually access it through affordable devices. So the device itself has to be affordable, and then the cost of services, the data packages also have to be affordable. Today, we have a target, which is 2% of monthly GNI. So basically 2% of your monthly income is the target. You got to be under that to be considered affordable. But if we look to many developing countries, we're not there yet. In some cases, it could be 10% of your monthly income. In other cases, it could be more than 20. So we're trying to work with countries to help bring down those costs. The other space where we're very active is when it comes to capacity building. So trying to make sure that people have the necessary skills to actually use a device in a meaningful way. So digital literacy, online safety is another big component. We want to make sure that we're advancing connectivity in a responsible way. So that responsibility piece is also core to our work. But there's a big gap. Our estimates actually show if we want to close the digital gap by 2030, so to get those 2.6 billion, it's going to cost us 1.6 trillion.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, but I think at the same time, there's recognition of the importance for overall economic development. And the exciting thing is also that there are some amazing technology developments. We look at things happening in space. We look at artificial intelligence. I think that give us hope that we can do it.
If I understand you correctly, then you must be working not just with governments, but also with the private sector.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
We actually have 194 member states that are part of the ITU, that belong to the ITU.
Almost everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have one more than the UN because we have the Vatican, which is a member state.
Yeah. Okay.
They've joined the ITU back in the 1920s because of radio, by the way.
1920s, really?
Yes. Yeah. But what makes us quite unique is that we actually have private sector members.
Yes.
So we have more than 1,000 private sector companies that are part of the ITU's membership.
1,000? Really?
Yeah. So all the leading tech companies are mobile operators, equipment manufacturers.
So that keeps you firmly on the ground. No disrespect to the other international organizations, but that does. Marvelous. So listen, recently I listened to you make a very good speech, and I'm not flattering you just because I'm sitting in front of you, to a joint lunch of the Swiss Forum for International Affairs FSPI in French, and the British Swiss Chamber of Commerce, called Bridging the Digital Divide in the Artificial Intelligence Era. Take this opportunity, Doreen, please, to explain, to summarize some of your principal arguments then and your concerns and hopes. And first of all, give me an idea of how big this bridge over the divide actually is.
Yeah. So when it comes to artificial intelligence, we cannot enable AI for all unless we close that digital gap. And so closing the digital divide has to be the first piece to get there. We want AI to be for the good of all, but that will only happen if we actually close the digital divide. So you've got that 2.6 billion unconnected and the cost, as I said, of the 1.6 trillion. When it comes to AI, currently you have about 32 countries that have access to compute. So you've got the data centers and the compute capacities in 32 countries. You got 150 countries that don't have access to compute.
It's a big disparity.
It's a big disparity. Our information and studies have shown us also that we have about 85% of our membership that don't yet have AI policies and strategies in place, so there's more scope.
So many, 85%.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. I mean, we're seeing encouraging developments, which I think is great, that many more countries understand that they have to catch up because the benefits are tremendous. I think we're also seeing when it comes to AI and IP, for example, you have about 10 countries that are leading in that sphere. And at the same time, when it comes to potential, I think the estimates say that by 2033, that AI will help to generate some 4.8 trillion US dollars. So there's a huge opportunity, but we need to close that divide, and we need to fix that bridge. Actually, at our recent AI for Good Global Summit back in July, we had a statement from Pope Leo. And it was actually his first, I think, international UN
and almost a divine source.
And so he delivered on behalf of the ambassador here a statement to us actually on bridges and the need to build bridges and close divides, which is absolutely what we're trying to do here. And I am very hopeful because I see the tremendous potential of artificial intelligence, and we're seeing so many exciting grassroots solutions at a recent summit. We had a woman who lost both of her arms due to meningitis at the age of 2, and she has robotic arms, and she was on the stage. Her name was Tilly. It was absolutely fascinating. We saw a paraplegic who actually was able to drive a Formula One with this brain interface. Last year we had Luis, who actually spoke to the audience. He has ALS. He was not able, because of this debilitating disease, to communicate, and through generative AI and through this brain-computer interface, he was actually able to speak to the audience.
It's almost a miracle.
Which brought tears to the whole crowd.
I can imagine.
And so when you see things like that, it's just tremendous what can happen. At the same time, if we have that divide and we have the haves and the have-nots, and we have misuses of technology, that's where it's very concerning.
Sure. I'm going to change tack a little bit,
Yep.
Doreen. You must be aware of recent headlines in the local, the Swiss and international press of the effect of recent quite drastic government actions in Washington, D.C. on budget reductions, even withdrawals from membership, affecting numerous UN organizations, which in turn have affected Geneva, where we are today. Now, I don't expect you to comment on the politics of all of this, or if you wish to share your personal point of view, and I and our listeners would welcome that. But how has this affected the ITU and its performance as you look ahead to the immediate future, say 3 to 4 budget years?
Well, I would say no organization is immune to financial constraints. And I think that that's on a global front, I would say. The ITU, and since I took up my function 2.5 years ago, I have been very focused on advancing a transformation agenda, trying to maximize efficiencies to result in better cost savings, because the reality is our budget is not growing, but the demands are increasing significantly.
Always the same.
Yeah. But we do have sort of a unique model in terms of our budget. We have our member state contributions, which represent about 70% of our budget. We have our private sector contributions, that's about 10%. And then we have another 20%, which is cost recovery. So a big thing for us when it comes to cost recovery, we do satellite network filing processing, which sounds very technical. But if you want to put something up in space, you actually have to come through the ITU and file it, because it actually takes, it's a process in terms of radio regulations and studies, and we like to
so
help ensure that space
income, so to speak.
It's diversified, and we also do significant projects as well in the field. But as I said, I don't think any institution is immune. It's difficult times. The world faces lots of developmental and global challenges, and we're trying to do the best that we can with what we have.
And where do you stand, not you personally, but where does the ITU stand on the debate, which is very current, that one effective way of saving money will be to move the ITU or other parts of it or other UN international organizations to cheaper locations? I mean, wouldn't that be a good idea?
So this is our headquarters here in Geneva. We also have field presence, not along the lines of what WHO or others have, but we do have 13 offices in the field, an office in New York.
Oh, 13 offices around the world.
Yeah. We have kind of the major regional hubs and smaller area offices. And those offices are focused on bringing technical support and assistance closer to the countries that we serve. Most of our technical studies and debates and dialogues, our governing body process happens here in Geneva. And I would say the advantage of us being here in Geneva are the diplomatic missions that we work with very closely, but I think also the relationships that we have here with the other UN and other international organizations. You know, we're home here to some 40 international organizations, and one of the great things for us with our focus on science, technology, innovation are things like our partnership with WIPO, when it comes to some of the stuff we're doing, even in spaces in health, our partnerships with WHO, our work with UNHCR on connecting refugees. And we have an amazing initiative, which I think kind of signifies Geneva, one with UNICEF on school connectivity. We have a connectivity center here. But the other one is our Early Warning for All initiative, which is ITU.
Could you say a bit more about that? Early warning for all. So
early warnings for all. So, you know, if you're in the Caribbean, you're from the Caribbean, you have Hurricane Erin that hit the week before last coming. We want to make sure that every person on this planet, when a disaster is about to strike, gets a warning system. When your phone goes off.
That comes through here.
So the cell broadcast is something that the ITU, I mean, that's a standard that we developed, that spectrum that our radio conferences allocate. And so the Secretary General of the UN has an initiative that every single country should have an early warning system in place by 2027.
I see.
So the ITU, WMO, IFRC, and UN Disaster Risk Reduction are co-leading this amazing global initiative, and it's homed here. We work with different partners here, and we're excited about the potential because technologically it's possible, and I believe that we can achieve it. And it's great that we have Geneva as this kind of science, technology, and innovation hub.
Absolutely, and these storms do seem to be becoming more frequent.
They do.
So that is important. My guest today is the Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union, Doreen Bogdan-Martin, and I'm a guest in her Geneva office talking about her and what she and her organization actually do. Now, Doreen, from what I've read, you've spent large parts of your career in and around what could be loosely called government bureaucracy in institutional towns and cities like Washington, D.C., like Geneva, as well as cities of learning and excellence like Boston. And I think you also worked in New York. What has living and working in those places and the many other professional journeys you've made taught you about how connectivity transforms lives, especially for girls and women stepping into the world of technology, and some for the very first time?
So throughout my career, I've traveled to almost 100 countries, and I've seen many things, and I've lived in international cities, as you mentioned, and had the opportunity in Boston. I'm an affiliate of the Harvard Berkman Klein Center, and working in New York through our office in New York. But I think what I've seen throughout my career and in my different visits to either capitals or rural communities or schools or healthcare institutes is the potential. We see many of the haves that kind of have everything when it comes to technology, and you see the have-nots and what happens when they get technology. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary.
I can imagine.
We have some great programs, some that we've done with our friends down the road from ITC, where we're working
That's the International Trade Center.
Exactly, and we're working to empower and enable women-led businesses with digital skills so they can bring their products to market. And I mean, there's the potential's huge, whether it's agriculture, whether it's the textile industry, whether it's healthcare, education. I think the potential in terms of life-changing opportunities is tremendous.
So you really are the hub, and you're working with the spokes of a wheel, so to speak. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Slightly different question, Doreen. Bring your ITU story alive even more, please. Please give me and our listeners some concrete and specific examples of how global power politics play out in the world which you inhabit. I'm mindful of the fact that your predecessor, for example, in this building was from the People's Republic of China, not a part of the world known for exemplary freedom of communication, and who before was elected Secretary General was someone who spent many years as the director of Telecommunication Standardization Bureau. And I'm not even sure what that means, but I know it's a very important part of this organization. And now you're from the United States of America. You head up the ITU. So forgive the expression, but characterize the arm wrestling that goes on between countries in the struggle for limited resources, like, for example, executive power, bandwidth allocation, protection against cyber attack, and privacy. Who gets what and how is it decided?
So we like to think of the ITU as a consensus-based organization, but to ultimately get to that consensus, there are definitely different views, different standards, different spectrum needs. And, I think probably the best example would be the work that we do in radio communications. Countries have different interests. Within countries, different parts of countries, like it could be, defense has a certain interest and the commerce side has a certain interest. So within countries.
So defense because of security, you mean?
Yes. Yeah. So they may have different viewpoints. And then the industry may also have different viewpoints, even within the same country. And so through the process of the work that we do, when it comes to radio communications, studies take place over 4 years. So we determined 2 years ago the agenda for our next conference, which is in 2027.
Sort of gestation.
And so for 4 years, you study. We're in the process of, 6G. We're in the process of looking at communicating lunar communications. We're looking at direct-to-device issues. And so those issues get studied for 4 years with the private sector at the table, with countries at the table, from all over the world, and they go at it, and they go at it, and they have groups that send things up to, they have working parties, and then they go up to study groups, and then they go up to the higher level. And what results after a 4-week treaty conference, our radio communications work is treaty-based.
So just let me stop. The 4-week treaty comes after the 4 years,
yes,
or every year within the 4 years?
Yes, yeah. So you study for 4 years, then you go to a 4-week conference.
Yeah.
You hash out the last details, and the outcome document is a treaty. And that treaty divides up bands for different services, and it helps to ensure seamless interoperability, to avoid interference, and that treaty is to be respected by the global membership. But to get there, I can say there's a lot of back and forth within countries, amongst countries, within regions. But it works, and I think it's a good example of multilateralism and why we need processes like this for important technical discussions that actually makes the world communicate.
No, but I was going to ask you, don't take this the wrong way, but empirically, with your long experience, that does work, that process.
It works.
It works. Well, great. Well, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, so to speak. Yeah. Finally. Well, look, last question, because I know you're a busy woman and I don't want to take up too much of your time today. Before we close, tell me about the burgeoning space economy and the governance of radio frequency spectrum, because I don't really know what that means. It's something which I've read about, but to be honest with you, I'm no expert. And satellite orbits. I'm the novice, so probably are many of our listeners today, and it'd be great to hear how the forces of international cooperation play out in those areas, please.
So the ITU is responsible for assigning orbital slots in space. So when it comes to like the geostationary, that's the highest part where you put up a satellite. And all you need is 3 geostationary satellites up there, and that covers the world. And then you get to middle and lower. But when it comes to the space economy, and things have changed dramatically over the past couple of years alone, the space economy is estimated to be worth $1.8 trillion by 2035.
It's a big number.
It's a big number.
Yeah.
Today, we actually have about 11,000 satellites over our heads. We have filings that if they actually all came true, would get us up to like 1 million by 2030. Okay. But the potential's huge. And to function, those satellites need frequencies, which is also linked to the other issue that I mentioned about these studies. Our next radio conference, 85% of the agenda is just on space, which is an example of how important
so it dominates the agenda.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the other important aspect is linked to space sustainability. Currently today, we have 1 million pieces of debris up there between 1 and 10 centimeters. And so something which I'm quite excited about that the ITU initiated last year, and we're continuing this year in October, is a space sustainability forum to discuss amongst countries, the private sector, when things go up, how do they come down? How do we make sure that space is sustainable and that we can have space work for all?
I see. Well, look, I could sit here and go through all that again and listen to you for a long time. It's been absolutely fascinating listening to you, Doreen. You're so fortunate to have such an interesting job, even if sometimes it must seem all-consuming. Thanks for answering my questions. We wish you all continued success. My guest today has been Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Secretary General of the International Telecommunication Union, the ITU. Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you, Michael. It's been great to chat with you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the McKay Interview podcast. You can find my show on most of the leading podcast platforms, plus the complete playlist dating back to 2012 can be found by writing The McKay Interview into your browser. Thanks again for listening.